Hello everyone, welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today is the second of my videos using the Lilypad lake. And my first one, this is what I made. And if you watched the video, I did say during it that I wonder what it would be like sponged. So after the video finished, I made two more. And I'm not the best sponger at all. I just do things that I think look pretty. There's no technique or anything that I use really. I try and go around in little circles, but sometimes it just turns out how it turns out. So this was the one where I made a sunset, and then this one I used the blues and the yellow just to make it look like a daytime scene. And I liked this one so much that my second video, I'm going to do that kind of sponging, and I'll show you exactly how I sponge it. As I said, I'm not a fantastic sponger or anything, but this is what works for me. So before we get to the sponging, there are a couple of parts of the card that we need to make first. And our base card is going to be Knight of Navy, and it's just normal cardstock cut in half, scored to make our base card, okay? And then with the Versamark, I'm going to use this line, like the water piece, just to make a pattern round the card. You'll only actually see a little bit of a border all the way round. But the Versamark means that you can stamp tone on tone. You don't have to do anything special. You just stamp and it starts to appear with the pattern that you've stamped it with. I'm not doing any, rhyme or reason. I'm just stamping the edges so that it looks like we've got a border. And because you won't see much of the border, I really am only stamping it to give sort of an illusion of some kind of texture on there, so that it doesn't look like a flat piece of card. It probably looks a little bit like you've got DSP on it or something. So there we are, that's all that is. The Versamark doesn't stay sticky or anything, it dries, but it dries slowly, because usually we use it for putting embossing powder on and heat embossing. So because it dries slowly, that's why I wanted to get it done early, and then I can just leave it to dry. So let's do our sponging piece. Now our sponging piece, let me just move that out of the way so I've got an inches on my pad. The piece for sponging is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. Now let me get this, because I'm really using this as scrap. Okay, so I'm going to make a sun, just like I did here, and I used my 1-inch punch on just normal post-it notes. This is the sticky part here, so I want to make sure that some of the sticky is on my sun piece, but also keep this piece, because this is the piece that we're going to do the sun with first. So decide whereabouts you want your sun to be. I just want mine sort of at the right hand side, not right at the top. Oh, I would like it level though. There we go. Okay. And I have the little finger sponges. Half of these are Stampin' Up and half are some that I bought on Amazon a long time ago. And as the Amazon ones are used, I don't know if you can see, but they go like bobbly because they were cheaper. But the Stampin' Up ones stay really nice. So the Stampin' Up ones are better. I just had this whole box of them from Amazon from about 6 or 7 years ago. So I use those, and as they get too bobbly, then I just throw them out and replace them with the Stampin' Up ones. But I'm going to use So Saffron, and you can see with the chalk pen, I just write on all of them which colour I've used them for, so that when I come to use them again, I use the same little dauber. Okay. Now, as I said, I don't have a real technique for sponging. I just do what I think looks nice. And it's always best to start on your scrap, and if you go round in little circles, that's the best way to make the sponging. But you don't want to start right in the middle of your sponged image because it will always be quite strong. So I sponge off a little bit and then just sponge. And just round and round. And for me, that's it done. That's the sun. I know some people will do layers of colour, but I don't. Okay, so I'm going to take that off, and that's where our sun will be. Now the little piece that we punched out, that's sticky on the one side, I'm just going to lay that over the top of the sun, like that, and I'm going to take my balmy blue, and this is going to be our sky. Excuse me, sneezing there. Okay, so let's make sure that's over the top of the sun. And then again, I'm just going off on the scrap, holding that piece down a little bit. And I'm just going to go round it. Oops, it doesn't want to stay sticky, that piece. So I'm just going to go round and round. You only need quite a light touch. You can see here, I was a bit heavy-handed. It doesn't matter, because after we've finished all the sponging, it will all be different sort of depths of colour, and you won't even notice that. I do like to choose sort of one corner to be darker than the others. I like it to be the right hand side of the sun. So I just tend to put a little bit more colour there as I'm working. And a little bit lighter underneath the sun, as though the sun was shining. And I'm just going to take that colour all the way down to the bottom. We are putting another colour on the bottom, but I just want it to have this little base of the blue. Now I might come back after we've done the rest of it and put a little bit more of the balmy blue on. So I'm not going to put my sponge away. Then I'm going to use Pool Party for the sea itself. That's Pool Party. You can see it's quite dark when you first take it off, but if you just sponge off a little bit of it, it comes up much lighter, and it's much easier to sort of blend into the two colours. You don't want definite lines between them. And you can see how fast I sponge. Now, I don't go over lots and lots of times. I just leave little bits like that. Okay. Pop that one away. I'm going to take this off the sun, and often you get a little white halo around it. If I lift it up, you can see very tiny little white parts. What you can do is either use the little sun that you had, and put it slightly offset so that you can just get nearer to the sun. So you can either do it that way, or you can use your template and just put that on like that, and then go over it with the yellow again. Both of the ways work perfectly well. Okay, now I'm just going to get rid of those for now. I'm not going to use more Pool Party, but I am going to use my balmy blue. There's just a couple of bits sort of at the top that I would just like to have blended in a bit more. I can see just a bit too much white on the edges. And I like it so that the very edges, you can see they have a little bit of colour around them, and that makes it really sort of stand out from the background. So that's all the sponging I'm doing. And I told you I wasn't a very good sponger, but that's really all you need. Okay, so for the next piece, I want to put water at the bottom, but I didn't want to stamp the water like I had here. So what I decided to use was the die cut. Now this is best if you have the self-adhesive sheets on the back of your card to cut it out, but I don't have any left and they are retiring, so I'm not buying any more. So what I've done is I've already cut a piece, I've put it through the Big Shot, and I've cut a piece on Balmy Blue. And all I'm going to do, if I just get my glue, is put a few blobs on. I'm not going to cut the edges until I've got this glued on, because otherwise you end up losing lots of little pieces. I don't think my glue wants to come out now. Oh, let's use a different one. Excuse me. I think that's maybe a bit gummed up, that one. Okay. What you can also do is get a little piece of sponge, put a blob of this glue on your silicone mat, and then with your sponge just dab it onto the glue and then onto the background here. So I just put in some little pieces. It's actually going to be a bit too big to go all the way across the card. So you're going to end up cutting some bits off. So you don't need to go all the way to the very edge and make sure every tiny piece is covered. Last one here, look. There we are. Okay. And then I'm just going to cut this very top piece off now. I don't want that to stick onto the card. Okay. And then I'm just going to add it onto the bottom. Okay. And then I'm going to just trim it. I always look at the back to trim so that I can see exactly where the overhangs are. And there we are. Let's glue those little pieces down. I'll just put a tiny bit more glue under that one. That one doesn't quite want to stick. Oh, I think that's the one that wasn't working. Let's try the other one. There we go. Okay. Right. So now we're going to go back to building the card. I'm going to find the base again. And can you see now how that just looks like you've stamped it with Night of Navy? And there's no rhyme or reason. Some of it overlaps. Doesn't matter because it's going to be covered over. We only want to see little bits at the edge. So I made my inside piece first, and my inside is just 1/4 inch smaller. It's just the 5 1/4 by 4, and I stamped this in Balmy Blue, and I stamped the heron in the granite grey, or grey granite. I'm going to attach it inside. And I do want to say thank you for all your comments that people have left me regarding the cards I made on Wednesday. It was really nice to read that people were going to have a try at making it, and you know, that they liked, let me just get it, they liked the use of the 2 DSPs, and that there wasn't really too much stamping to do. There were only little bits of stamping, and the rest were just cutting paper. So thank you very much for all your comments. It means a lot to me. Okay, so here we have the base. I've cut a piece of vellum. Let's go back to my inches paper. And my vellum is 3 1/4 by 4 3/4. And that's going to go on here as our sort of background base. And can you see now what I meant about you can't see all of these patterns, so you don't know how far in you've stamped or whether you've stamped it the correct way or anything. It just turns out beautiful. I'm going to put some of my fast views on the back, you aren't going to see where this is taped down. So don't worry about using tape on this. We're not trying to hide the vellum. Ordinarily, if I'm using vellum and I don't want to be able to see the adhesive through, I'll use glue dots in just little tiny areas. But for this, it doesn't matter. Oh, there's still some wet glue there. Okay, now this piece is just going to go on the front here, and it's going to go so that it's even all the way around. I don't want this on an angle, because otherwise when we put our little heron on, it will look a bit seasick. So I'm just going to pop this on with tape. You can use wet glue, you can use snail, whatever you prefer. I just have to make sure that I get this nice and level. There. And it can be tricky when you're putting these on and you've got a piece that's already cockeyed or, you know, on an angle, because my eyes don't always see things in a straight line, I think. Okay, so there we are. Now, not yesterday, Wednesday, when I was cutting these, I had a spare one. So this is stamped and cut out. It was in the grey granite as well. And he's going to go just here. He's actually going to go in the water this time. And I'm going to pop him on with Stampin' Dimensionals. If you wanted to put the little green reeds there as well, like I did on the other cards, you could certainly put some of those at the bottom. There we are. And then I had lots of the little boats left that I'd cut out. A couple I've coloured in, and I've tried to keep the colours the same as the backgrounds here. So I've got Balmy Blue, and I've got Pool Party, and a little bit of Night of Navy, the light Night of Navy blend, and a little bit of the Mint Macaron, just so that they all look like a similar colour. And then for my sentiment, I chose the Thinking of You one. And if you watched on Wednesday, you know that that's the one I use a lot. That's one of my favourite ones. Okay, and you can decide where you want this sentiment to be. If you want it to be on the card at the bottom, if you want it to be sort of, oh, can't put it under his head, can we? But no, I've maybe made this one a bit big, but you could have it over here so that it's going over the sun and everything. You could make a smaller sentiment. It would be quite nice with just like a little round sentiment here, just so that it sort of mirrored the sun there. You can have it so that it goes across the top. I don't actually know where I'm going to put it yet. I think I might put it over, a little bit over the sun, and have it there sort of off centre. Now what I did on this card with the sun, you can see I put a little bit more of the So Saffron, so it looked like the sun was shining on the water. And if you wanted to do that, just take your So Saffron one again, just mind that little guy's head, just sponge around. You can see how it's picking up just a little bit of the yellow. You don't need much. Okay, I'm going to put these on with dimensionals as well. I'm so pleased that this set is carrying on. But I will make more now with the stamps, the images, rather than just the sentiments. Okay, and then I'm going to put some of these little boats on. I'm just going to use Tombow for these. I'm just going to put two little boats here. I've got one more that I've cut out, and I'm going to put it on inside. You just do whatever you feel works for you, and what you think, it looks good for you, and you always end up with something beautiful. How can you not go wrong with a stamp set like this from Stampin' Up? Beautiful inks, beautiful card and paper. It's just so easy. So there we are. That's my second card of the week. Here's my first and here's my second. I hope you like this one and I hope you'll give this a go, especially the Versamark where you're using it just to make a background. And it really does look like this card has been either embossed or it's rippled, and it looks like a textured layer. So thank you very much indeed for watching. If you like my videos, please think about sharing them or subscribing, and then you'll get to see my videos every week. I generally put them on a Wednesday and a Sunday, and if I have anything else that I'm doing, like an unboxing video or some tip to show you, I put those on as well. So thanks very much indeed, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.